everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do something new. Basically, I'm going to propose to you or recommend 13 horror-based or horror themes tarot and oracle decks, whether it's indie or mass market, it doesn't really matter. And I am going to recommend them to you according to your favorite horror books. So basically if you like this book, you will love this tarot deck. So we're going to start with Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. If there's any vampire themed book that I absolutely love and I keep on going back to, it's that one. I think that first of all, Anne Rice was responsible, if not the first one, but she was definitely responsible for a certain, let's say, sexualization of vampires, and she literally depicted them as being incredibly interesting, you know, the undying, the forever young, the forever beautiful, even when they do hunt and when they bite and when they feed, basically, there's never a component of grossness about them that you can actually find in a lot of other movies and books based on vampires. I reckon that we may go from really super fashionable and glamorous kind of vampires to the really gross ones that look more and more like zombies. So if we had to pick on a scale from 1 to 10 how glamorous the vampires are, in the Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice is definitely a 20. So it is also one of my favorite books. As I said, I keep on going back to it because I just absolutely loving the way in which Anne Rice is describing their daily activities, but at the same time she doesn't shy away from showing their emotions and putting them one against the other and showing that you know, even when we talk about good versus evil in a world populated by such amazing and glamorous and charismatic vampires, you cannot really draw that distinction in an easy way. There's always a lot of complex characters in all of her books, and I really, really love them. So if you like The Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, I recommend The Tarot of Vampyres by Ian Daniels. I mean, this is kind of a given, and you will see that there will be a couple of really obvious choices that I'm going to show you today. But you also know me, you know that I don't shy away from an obvious choice. I mean, if something works, why making it complicated? If it works, let it go, let it work, you know, as long as it goes. And I really do believe that this one, out of all of the vampire decks that I've got, and let me tell you, I've got something like, I believe I have 13, you know, ironically enough. Out of all of the vampire themed decks that I've got, this one is the most glamorous by far. I mean, if we look at it, and by the way, I always say at this point when I open this box and I see the Phantasmagoria guidebook, I always say, guys, this guidebook is freaking amazing. It is more akin to a, let's say, a tarot manual, but with also numerology, astrology, alchemy, knowledge of these disciplines here and there on the book associated with the tarot. So I always recommend that. Unfortunately, though, this deck is out of print, even though it was a mass market deck by Llewellyn, it is now out of print, and I think it actually has become quite hard to find. The good news is that I've actually seen a couple of people saying, not by my experience, so of course I cannot really vouch for it, but a couple of people told me that the Spanish version of this deck is still available, probably online in some resellers. I'm not entirely sure, but if you're desperate to get your hands on this, just, you know, try the Spanish option. Obviously, if you don't speak Spanish, that may be a little bit of a problem, but nowadays, by the way, I don't know if you heard, and I tried it out and it works, I would say 80%. Now with the new iPhone, I'm not affiliated with Apple at all, but because I speak several different languages, and we travel a lot to countries where we don't speak the language. I've actually tried out, there is a function that you pair up your latest iPhone with the latest AirPods, like the earphones, and you can switch an automatic interpreter. So someone speaks to you in a language and you hear it in English. Not all of the languages are there already, but that is fucking awesome. So I don't know why I told you about this. But in any case, so let's just zoom in, because obviously we want to see the cards. And as much as I really love my Halloween decorations, it's always best to see the cards. So this one, as you can see, it's incredibly glamorous. There's a lot of really, I would say, Vogue-like beauties in here, which is not necessarily something that I appreciate too much, because I think that at a certain point, what do we consider beauty? Do we always have to propose the same model of being incredibly skinny, being incredibly white, and so on and so forth, and judging that as the epitome of beautiful? To me, that is not correct. But in any case, if we are looking at the way in which these beauties are represented here, this is definitely something that reminds us of Interview with a Vampire. They're just eternal. They are eternal vampires, eternally young, eternally sensual and sexy, and really showing also, let's say, really beautiful clothes, really beautiful settings, luxurious houses, I don't know, you name it. But it is something that is quite interesting to see, because I do believe that these two will go hand in hand. I've actually done an experiment a couple of years ago in which I was pairing up tarot decks, or oracle decks as well, actually, with books that I was reading, not necessarily just horror themed tarot or books. And sometimes it works really well, sometimes it does. It's a part of my practice. I haven't done that in a long time, but if I had to start again, I would definitely do it in this month of Spooktober with these pairings between books and decks. And if you liked Ring by Koji Suzuki, you will absolutely love the Yokai Yochi Tarot. Now, let's talk about Ring. So it's the title of the book is actually Ring in the English translation. Obviously, it's a Japanese, original Japanese book. But the titles of both the movies, the original and the adaptation, or rather the original and the remake, The Ring. So we'll just call it The Ring, but you know which one I'm talking about. It is absolutely so frigging scary. It's just, and it's based on not a very specific type of yokai. Like I bet if you do some research, you can actually find a couple of yokais that could be, let's say, paired up with what happens in the actual book. And that's the reason why I'm picking the Yokai Yochi by Bubo Blake. Now, there is a number of decks, even mass market decks, that deal with yokais, so the supernatural beings in Japan. You don't have to have the Yokai Yochi. It is just my favorite. But it's also because it does come with a sentimental value for me. The way in which I acquired this deck always makes me kind of happy, because it is a true testament to how tightly knit the tarot community is. I was looking for this deck and I couldn't find it. There was a time in which everyone was really keeping it close to their chest, and no one wanted to part ways with it, and by their own rights, of course. And it was very difficult to find it. And then what happened was that I got contacted by someone in Canada who knew someone nearby that was selling it in a Canadian or American Facebook group. And so she put me in touch with this person, but this person understandably didn't want to, because it was a swap. So I sent a couple of other decks. I don't remember which ones, to be honest. But she didn't want to ship the stuff to Australia because it was very costly. So I had to get it shipped from Canada into Portland, where I still have a parcel collect service. And then they forwarded everything to me. And I was absolutely stoked, but because I basically waited 1 month in order to see this deck, I will always cherish the moment in which I opened it up and I saw what it was and how beautiful it is and how much I like it and so on and so forth. Now, The Ring, the book, I read the book and also watched both the movies. I really do not like, I'm sorry, but I don't like the remake with Naomi Watts, I believe it is. I do think that the original nails the atmosphere. Like, there's so many little colors. It's just really, really perfect. And that's the reason why, well, I'm basing this on books, obviously. There will be a same version of this video with movies, horror movies. If you like this horror movie, you will love this tarot deck. Stay tuned, it's coming soon. I already done my research and everything. But as I was saying, I do really believe that the book itself is not necessarily monochromatic, but in a world where there's so much fear and there is this curse that passes now. And by the way, every now and again, I may actually give out spoilers. I apologize in advance when it comes to the books and most likely when it comes to the movies. So I'm really sorry for that. I don't really know how to stop myself from giving spoilers because I need to justify my choices. You'll excuse me if you really do not want to be spoiled. Then when I start talking about, when I have to give something away, I will say, look, this is a spoiler, so you can jump 5 minutes ahead. Let's see if that works this way. So as I was saying, it is not necessarily monochromatic, but it's very minimalist when it comes to the visual descriptions, because it actually makes it even more scary. And I believe that that was the spirit of the book, and the movie actually, the original one, really nailed it. And I think that this tarot deck actually nails the same concept, let's say, scaring with the illusion of something really, really dark and sinister. So absolutely love this deck. And if you love The Passage by Justin Crony, which is, again, one of my favorite books of all times, and you guys should know this, you should know the deck I'm going to propose. So if you like The Passage by Justin Crony, you will love the Tarot Z by Alejandro Colucci. The reason why I'm saying you guys should know this is because I always reference that book whenever I'm showing this deck. The reason is that I was so mesmerized and I literally fell in love. I did. I fell in love with the Passage by Justin Crony. Thanks to the book, I finished the trilogy. Thanks to the book, I read other books by the same author. I did not like them as much, but The Passage is probably one of my favorite books of all times, at least top 10. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it is, yes, it's a horror. Of course, it's a horror book, and yes, of course, it is based on not necessarily zombies, but we are looking at a dystopian future society in which there is this virus that is taking a hold of human beings, transforming them into monsters. And let's say, there is a whole bunch or whole corner of the cinematic world, or also the literary world, that is dedicated to these beings that are not necessarily 100% zombies. If you think about this, The Last of Us, for example. So in The Last of Us, it's a fungus. There's other books or movies where it's a virus. There's other books or movies where it's just a curse, for example. So nothing scientific, actually, let's say paranormal, supernatural. But that book is so good in showing the feelings of the zombies. Let's call them zombies. It's just easier. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's a scene. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read The Passage, you really want to read it, then please skip ahead 5 minutes. But then again, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you will remember what I'm about to say, because I always say this when I look at this tarot deck. So there is a point in which, of course, you all know if you read it, that there is this girl. She's actually immune. Not only is she immune, but they discover that because she's immune, or maybe she has particular superpowers and that makes her immune, but I don't know. But in any case, this girl everyone wants to protect her, but also everyone wants to study her because, you know, being immune means that maybe there's a cure and so on and so forth. So she's on the run, obviously, and there's someone trying to protect her because they care about her. At a certain point, they are just surrounded. I believe they are in an abandoned factory or something like that. They're surrounded. There's not much hope left. And she can't really do much. But at a certain point, there is a surprise, the element of surprise, which is also a distraction, which is actually working really, really well in whether it's a movie or a book, it doesn't really matter. And there's an element that is completely new that is actually, you know, brought by the author to distract you as a reader in imagining that everything is over because you're still like 60% into the book and you're like, what's going to happen in the rest 40%? Because if it's over now, what do I expect for the other 40%? So this surprise is basically that she not only is immune, but she also is bonded forever with the zombies. And the way in which she's bonded with them is that she's the only one that can look into their eyes and tell them who they are and tell them their name. So obviously she's referring to the name they had before they became zombies, before they were infected, before they lost their humanity. And so they know that, and what they do is they form a line, and everyone patiently waits for their turn to go in front of her and ask her, what's my name? And that is something that honestly, it never ceases to make me cry. I think it's one of the most emotional that you can actually see in a horror book, especially, you know, coming from the monster. I mean, there is this idea that these monsters, and this is the Passage deck, because all of these monsters have lost their humanity, but you can feel the pain of that loss, and you can feel the desire, the longing to know at least their name, the name that they had, that they were given, christened with before they became monsters. Would that be the last vestigial maybe bond or sign that they still want to be human again? And I don't know, we don't know that. We don't really understand why they are so enamored with the idea that this girl can actually tell them your name was such, and so on and so forth. I love that book because of that passage. I don't know what that says about me. Am I the person that falls in love with the book just because of probably one paragraph or maybe a whole page out of 700 pages? Yes. Well, so be it. Because that I have not, to this day, I have not found anything as poignant, as heartbreaking, emotional, and incredibly deep as that concept in any other book, let's say, of this kind. So, and this is the perfect deck for it. And if you liked The Crow Road by Ian Banks, by the way, this book by Ian Banks is Ian Banks and not Ian M. Banks, because the Scottish author is also writing under the pseudonym or, you know, kind of a different name, Ian M. Banks, but those books are sci-fi. The Crow Road is not sci-fi. It is very dark. In a certain way, it's not entirely what I would say a horror book. It's one of those books that there's a lot of people saying this isn't horror. Because, of course, we are all entitled to our own opinion, and obviously it really depends on what you look for in a horror book. To me, that is a few elements. In here, I will not give out spoilers, because if I do give out spoilers and you read it, you will kill me. Because honestly, the twist is really, I honestly did not see coming. And maybe it was because it was published back in the 90s and, you know, I wasn't necessarily as indoctrinated into horror books and movies as I am now, but I didn't see it coming. And so I don't want to ruin the book for you. But the twist is, to me, that is very disturbing. It is a very disturbing twist, and I believe that because of that, the whole book has a very sinister kind of not sinister in the sense of impending doom. Sinister as in what has happened to this person is something that would definitely be prominent in a horror movie. You know, if they made a movie, I don't know whether there was an adaptation, maybe there was, because it was a really popular book. So let me just show you. If you like The Crowroyd by Ian Banks, you will love Murder of Crows by Corrado Roy. This is one of my favorite decks of all times because of Corrado Roy. Is one of my favorite illustrators. Is obviously the illustrator of one of my favorite, let's say, graphic novels of all time, which is called Dylan Dog, published by Sergio Bonelli Editore in Milano. So obviously we're talking about a very distinguished kind of art style. If you know Corrado Roy from the darker days of tarot, or the dark side, of tarot. I don't have that deck. I should probably get it. But there's another one which is called the Joker Tarot, also released by Lo Scarabeo. If you have that deck, you would definitely recognize this art style because it's very recognizable. Love it, love it, love it. It is full of crows. Obviously, it is the Murder of Crows. The reason why I'm actually comparing these two is because I believe that in the Crowroyd, even though there are crows, it's implied in the title, but the Crowroyd is a symbol for a rite of passage that the protagonist goes through, and it feels like there's this symbolism of the crows as messengers, but also as they take you from one place to another. So they facilitate this kind of transition and journey. And the protagonist of the book literally goes into this journey. And in here, they are harbinger of this kind of transformation. So I really strongly believe that there is a strong bond between this deck and that book, or the concept behind that book. I would say that on a scale of from 1 to 10, this deck is a lot darker than the book. The book is a 7 for darkness for me. This book is a 9. This deck is a 9 when it comes to darkness. But I really, really love it. I love the art style. I love the fact that it's very minimal. When it comes to the choice of colors, it's literally just charcoal. It looks like a choice with charcoal, so just black applied on some paper. I think that this is one of the decks that I would forever refuse to use in a reading, even if no one actually asked me to use a dark deck for a reading, of course, but even if they did, I would probably say no. This is a collectible item for me. I love it for aesthetic reasons. It is too dark to use it. For me, it is too dark for use it for divination types of readings. But if you liked The Crowroyd by Ian Banks, you will love The Murder of Crows by Corrado Roy. And because we talked about Dylan Dog, obviously, I just wanted to say I am including Dylan Dog as a book, even though it's a graphic novel published on a monthly basis, still published in Italy, by the way. But those were books to me. They were quite thick. I mean, we were talking about at least 120, if not more pages. It is a graphic novel, so obviously it was very visual. And one of the illustrators was indeed Corrado Roy. The author and the creator of Dylan Dog as a concept is Tiziano Sclavi. I believe Tiziano Sclavi is unfortunately not with us anymore. I could be wrong, but I lost touch with these publications. Obviously, I cannot get them here in Australia, but every time that I go back to Italy, I do make sure to buy a couple of copies because I really love it. And it's also bringing back these memories when I was 14, 15 years old and I was in high school. And basically, I needed to take a break from all of the philosophy, history, geography, math, calculus, and so on and so forth, and Latin. And so I was reading Dylan Dog during recess. And then, I was kind of regretting it because my mind was completely focused on Dylan Dog. And if I had a test afterwards, I would not have been scoring really high on that test, especially Latin or maths. But, so if you like it, if you know it, if there was a movie, by the way, and I believe it was in English because it was featuring Rupert Everett. although I never watched it, but in any case, it could be really interesting. But if you like that, you will love, obviously, the tarot deck that has been based on Dylan Dog. I have two. This one is the original. So as you can see here, by Tiziano Scavi and Angelo Stano. So Angelo Stano was one of the illustrators together with Corrado Roy, but this one has been illustrated just by Stano. This is the original from the 90s, I believe, but I also have the latest one from maybe 7 or 8 years ago. This one is majors only. There's another one with the whole 78 cards. I just wanted to show you this one. This one is from 1991, so it's a rather old kind of deck. I just wanted to show you this one because I believe it's, let me put it this way, it actually is more representative in these 22 major arcanas of the graphic novel rather than the full deck. So in the full deck, you still have these 22 majors, but you also obviously have the 56 minors with slightly different thematics. I do prefer this one. Obviously, if you want the full deck, the other one is. I don't think that is still available again. Well, this one for sure not, from 1991. But you might still be able to find perhaps the full 78 cards deck for a reasonable price. It is in Italian, obviously, it is an Italian publication. I just really love this deck so much. And it is perfect. It is perfect because it is official. So Sergio Bonelli Editore basically made a deal with Lo Scarabeo in order for them to to use the same illustrators as the graphic novel. So this is not, how should I say this? This is an official reproduction. So obviously, you know, these characters look exactly the same. Sorry, as the graphic novel. So if you like it, if you like the graphic novel, you would definitely love the tarot. And if you liked Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Anfield, you will love the Tarot of the Drowning World. Let me just explain this because it might actually feel like it's a bit of a stretch, but maybe not. I mean, it depends if you read the book, obviously. And spoiler alert, if you haven't read the book, I will have to talk about the book now. Otherwise, I cannot justify my choice. So Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Anfield is one of the most compelling read I have read this year. It's not from this year, but I hadn't read it before. It's barely more than a novella. It's not very big. It's very concentrated. And it talks about this scientist that is part of an expedition to go in a submarine and study basically life under the sea, in the depth of the sea. She's married, but her wife doesn't know much about what she's doing. I mean, yeah, they love each other, of course, as a couple, but sometimes it just so happens, especially if one of the two is a scientist and the other one is not. And every time that her wife goes under the sea, you know, it's a bit like, oh my God, you know, let's hope that nothing happens. And unfortunately, something does happen at a certain point. And the submarine where she is does not resurface. And they were supposed to resurface 3 weeks afterwards. But they went from 3 weeks to finally resurfacing after 6 months. Oh my God, can you imagine? Honestly, I was reading it and I was thinking to myself, it's true, spoiler alert again, there's not monster horror here. It is implied that there is something under the sea that actually eventually, you know, modifies the protagonist's essence, body, and also chemistry and biology, etc. But it's implied, it's not necessarily described. There's some very disturbing scenes, very disturbing, because, you know, people tend to lose their mind. And but the best, so it's divided in 2 parts, obviously. When she finally does resurface and she goes back to her wife back at home, she's completely changed. She's completely changed, and it's described from the point of view of her wife, and her wife is grieving because she literally cannot recognize her anymore. And it's like, well, it's like you're still under the sea. It's like you never came back to me. And it is incredibly sad, I would say, but also it shows the power of love, not in the sense that love conquers all. This is not one of those happy ending kind of books, unfortunately. Sorry to give out this spoiler, but don't expect things to get fixed at the end. They don't. But there is an act of love, incredibly powerful, incredibly beautiful, very difficult to accept. I don't know if I will be able to do what the wife does. And I need to give a spoiler. So spoiler alert, basically what happens to the scientist that goes under the sea and then resurfaces after 6 months, she literally, but gradually, but literally transforms into basically water. So she loses her facial features, she loses an eye as well. She's transparent more and more. She needs to stay in a bathtub like 18 hours a day. It's progressive, but it is very sad. And it's just reminds me so much of the Tarot of the Drowning World, because even though the protagonist is not drowning, she just becomes water. But there is this sense of grieving from her wife, because she's literally thinking that she lost her, that she just never resurfaced. She's still under the sea. So, and it's called Our Wives Under the Sea because whilst her wife was still underwater in the submarine, she actually goes into a forum. And she tries and find, it's very difficult, but she tries to find a support group for wives whose husband is at war, maybe in a hot spot, or and so she thinks, what will be the name of the support group? Our Wives Under the Sea, and that's the reason why it's called this way. And this is the perfect deck for it. So if you like Our Wives Under the Sea, you will love the Tarot of the Drowning World. If you like The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell, you're my person, because I just love that book so much. And I had no idea. So I kept on watching, because I watch a lot of booktubers. My favorite one is Kayla from Books and Lala, but Anda Kent, it's up there together with Kayla. And everyone was talking about The Silent Companions, and I was like, I didn't feel, I read the synopsis and I was like, I guess I could like it. And so I finally found it for free in my library, and I got it. I was like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna give it a try. Oh my god, that book is freaking amazing. If you love haunting, obviously it is a haunting, but it's not a haunted house, it's a haunted object, which is slightly different. I believe that there's more dynamism. The dynamics of a haunted object can actually expand, because sometimes when you're tied down to the house, it's not as, let's say, it doesn't give you as many possibilities to find horrific moments in the writing. It is, honestly, I think that is, to me, is the same level of scare of the Haunting on Hill House or Bly Manor, or let's put it this way. Laura Purcell, I believe she's channeling Shirley Jackson. I believe. I loved it so much, because it's also characterizing the protagonist in such an intense way. There is this idea, there's 2 timelines. I'm not a fan of 2 timelines, but it is necessary. And so I put up with it. But in any case, I think I gave it a 4.5 or 4.75 because I'm not a fan of the 2 timelines, but that's just personal, obviously. And, sometimes it is necessary in the book, so I've got nothing against it. And 4.75 in my standard, it's super high. So love it so much. And if you liked it, you will love the Somnia Tarot. And I think that if you liked the Silent Companions and you remember many of the things that happen in that house, especially things related to shrouds, covering stuff with the sheet and everything, it is literally the same. The atmosphere of the Somnia Tarot is exactly the same as the one you can find in the Silent Companions. Obviously, though, This is set outdoors, whereas the Silent Companion is 99% set inside. But the atmosphere is very similar. That's what I wanted to say. Because of these characters being literally shrouded, covered in a sheet, there is this sense of impending doom. I mean, look at the Eight of Wands. There is also this sense of stillness, but there's also, for example, the Three of Wands to me looks a little bit like, the villagers, between brackets, chasing the victim because they believe that the victim brought evil to their village. And it's in the Silent Companions a lot more sophisticated than that, but the theme is the same. Literally, there's someone thinking or saying, you're completely mad, you're gone completely bonkers, I need to institutionalize you. I need to take you away from society because you bring bad examples, you scare people, and you shouldn't be, and so on and so forth. And obviously this victim has actually seen what happens, and she was trying to make her brother, in this case, understand what was going on, but no one believed her. So this to me looks like the moment in which, spoiler alert, sorry about that, but they decide to institutionalize her because it's like, you're completely crazy, you have to be removed from society, and so on and so forth. So I love this deck so much. The cardstock is phenomenal. I have to say, it's so buttery. I really love it. And by the way, I have good news. If you backed the revised version of the Somnia Tarot and the Oracle and the book, I just received an update from Nicholas Bruno's Kickstarter campaign saying that he posted that the decks are with him, I believe, and he's going to start fulfillment soon. So hopefully, well, being in Australia, I don't expect it before Christmas because it will take months to come here, but at least it's in the process of being shipped out. So if you're in the US, you'll probably receive it in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. And I cannot wait to see it because honestly, I only have this one, but I actually backed the revised version and also the Oracle deck because I believe the Oracle deck is freaking awesome. And so I really cannot wait. And this to me is like one of the Silent Companions. So spoiler alert again, these Silent Companions are cardboard or wooden, let's say wooden figurines, but rather big. And the horror is that they're actually animated. So they move, but they also kill. So it's haunted object, of course, but it's also visually very striking because it does show you the features of, someone who lived in the house before them and so on and so forth. So this is a Silent this looks like the way in which I would see one of the Silent Companions being depicted in a photographs would be this way. Obviously, then they removed the sheets, but that was also very triggering because there is this room where everything is covered by sheets, and there are so many movies, horror movies, in which you enter into a room in a mansion and everything is covered by a sheet, and you're like, let's just remove the sheets. What could happen? How bad can it be? And of course, there's all sorts of maleficent and evil spirits that are liberated just because you did that. But in any case, if you like the Silent Companions, you will love the Somnia Tarot. If you liked Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, you will love the Santa Muerte Tarot. I love the pulp vibes. I know that it shouldn't be. It's Mexican Gothic and it's also an historical horror. But I don't know why. Maybe because of Silvia Moreno Garcia is one of my favorite authors. I love Mexican and South American authors. One of my favorite is Mariana Enriquez. She's Argentinian. The way she writes, and I love reading her, ironically, in a translated version. I did read her in the original, but I think that especially a Sunny Place for Shady People, which is a collection of short stories, that's my favorite one of all times. It's just I didn't want to include a short story collection in today's books because I don't know, it feels like there should be just one story, but that one by Mariana Enriquez, if you like, what should I compare her to? She's the Argentinian equivalent of a Catriona Ward. I also love Catriona Ward so much. So Our Share of the Night, one of my favorite books of all times. But going back to Silvia Moreno Garcia, I love Mexican writers as well, and South American writers. And maybe because one of Silvia Moreno Garcia's books, or almost all of her books, the cover feels like pretty much like a pulp cover. Like a Silver Nitrate, for example, that is really reminding me of the pulp movement and artistic movement, and I just really love it. But in any case, it is very... So when you look at the Santa Muerte Tarot, which is by Fabio Listrani, you will immediately see the connection between that book and this deck. So obviously this one is limited to the celebration of the Santa Muerte, which is not necessarily a theme that you find in the book per se, but there is this sense of the curandera. So the protagonist, she goes to a curandera, she goes to a healer to try and save her cousin from an affliction that she's developed. And the family in the house is really odd, it's really weird, it's really like, there's some really disturbing stuff going on, generational also trauma being brought up to the surface and everything. And the protagonist is very, like, if I had to find a label, she's very representative of girl power. She's like, well, you know what? Yeah, I know that you're a man and I'm a woman and I'm supposed to be subdued to you, but no, I'm not. And I'm going to protect my cousin. I'm going to try and save her, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, she exposes herself to the same kind of curse / spoiler alert, fungus infection. But there is the sense of the Santa Muerte in the colors of the book. You really read the description and you feel like you can see the colors. But also, for example, because the protagonist loves clothes, and in here you can find really beautiful clothing as well, as you can see. But also because there is this sense of celebration of the Mexican festivities in the book, and you see that in the Santa Muerte, of course, as well. The sense of family, for example, this one is the card that most reminds me of the family itself. So, the father and the two sons and obviously the wife, which is the protagonist cousin, and so on and so forth. And there is this sense of really, there is this impending doom, obviously, that you can feel at Nicona, which is also reminded to you by some of these cards. This is an incredibly beautiful deck, I have to say. It's probably one of my favorite ones. It does not necessarily read very well, and it's not for me. I can read it, but I need to go back to the guidebook because some of these cards don't necessarily remind me of the RWS meaning associated with them. So I prefer to, just go to the guidebook and be sure that I'm interpreting the cards in the correct way. That doesn't stop me from using it, but it's just such an amazing and gorgeous book. And so if a deck, so sorry, I keep on confusing book with deck with movie, but you know what I'm saying. So if you liked Mexican Gothic, you will love the Santa Muerte Tarot. And if you loved Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian, and I know that there's not a lot of people who read that book, I loved it so much. The atmosphere is amazing. The descriptions are fantastic. The writing style is freaking awesome. The plot is very interesting, very good. There's also one of the tropes is, let's say, kind of twisted because in this case, we do have, spoiler alert, again, so sorry about that, but if you haven't read it yet, you want to read it, just skip ahead because I'm going to say something that is kind of a reveal. And I don't remember whether it's already described in the synopsis or not, but we're dealing with witches as well as dead people. Okay, so dead people as in ghosts and witches. So Red Rabbit, by the way, has got nothing to do with rabbits, or rather it's just the name assigned to a girl that is one of the protagonists. I personally love Rose very much, Grace as well, but and Rabbit, she's cool, but there's a sequel which is called The Rose of Jericho, which depicts the same protagonist again. and I don't like it as much. I believe that Red Rabbit took me on an adventure, and it just really made me care so much about the characters that I just really wanted to be together with them. Even when I finished the book, I was really sad to see them go. I wasn't ready to let them go. I love this so much. And even the ghost, I just love them so much. And there is this sense of adventure in this book. There's this trio of witches hunters, and they need to find the witch, because they want the money. There's always a reward. But then, and they encounter a lot of ghosts, and it's just amazing because ghosts have the same emotions as human beings, so it's a very special kind of ghosts, and so they interact with humans, but they cannot leave the place where their body is, because obviously that's how it works. That's one of the laws of the physics of the dead people. So really loved that book so much. And because the witches, especially Grace, the actual witch is very much depicted as that very wise woman, a woman that is very close to nature, a woman that knows her potions and spells, a woman that let's put it this way, is the very positive depiction of a witch in a book that is actually about witch hunting. So you see what the author has done there. Obviously, you're kind of conflicted. Do you like the character or that is being hunted, or do you like the hunters more? Because they're also really cool. So in my case, I love both. I just think that if you like Red Rabbit, you will absolutely love A Companion of Witches, Oracle by Natasha Lincic. By the way, there's only a couple of oracles, or maybe 3, that I've chosen for this video. Most of them, as you've seen so far, are actual books, tarot decks, sorry. But I really believe, and I do have witch tarot decks, witch-based tarot decks. The Witch Sister Tarot by Julia Jeffrey is one of my favorite ones. But I believe that this one is more representative of the book. It's just probably a gut feeling. I really love this deck. It's basically divided in 2. It's by Los Carabeos, so it's very rare that Los Carabeos makes an oracle deck with like 50 cards. Usually it's like 32. But it is split in 2, so I guess that counts. And so you can see all of these, let's say, locations and familiars and tools for witchcraft and so on and so forth. And ingredients and everything in this first part. And then you go to this second part, and it's basically talking about archetypes related to witchery, to witchcraft. So really absolutely love the art style. I think it's absolutely amazing. Really, really beautiful. Ironically, it does pair well with the Sister Witch by Julia Jeffrey, the tarot deck. I'm also thinking it would probably pair up really nicely with the Woodland Wardens Tarot by Jessica Rue, which is not out in Australia yet. We'll have to wait for November or December, but I'm thinking it can actually pair really nicely with that. And this is literally, I imagine, there you go. This is how I imagine Rose going around in the book. Because they travel, they obviously they're hunting Grace, which is a witch, and Rose is one of the hunters at the beginning at least. And she's taking custody of Rabbit. And basically, I see them, going around dressed like this or like that, because that was obviously set in those years. So I absolutely love, and this card is one of the most intense cards that I've got in all of my oracle decks. Really, really love it. If you liked Red Rabbit, I highly recommend The Companion of Witches, because it does really remind you of the same kind of atmosphere of the book. And we've only got 4 left, so I had 13 decks today to show you. We've come to the last 4. This one is one of my favorite books of all times. It's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. How should I say this? I know that a lot of people will say that's fantasy, it's not horror, and I would probably tend to agree. I don't read fantasy. Some fantasy I do read. I like certain types of fantasy, and there's so many subgenres. It's very difficult for me to just pinpoint which ones I actually do like reading. The ones that have a bit of a horror story integrated into the fantasy, I actually really love. Addie LaRue is by far my favorite female character of a horror or slash fantasy book of all time. Her story, again, spoiler alert, sorry about that, her story is heartbreaking. Her story is heartbreaking. It's just, I literally cried, not just at the end of a book, which is kind of a common factor for me whenever I really love a book and it's something heartbreaking, I will cry. But I cried throughout the whole book. And Addie is just such an amazing character. She has so much strength inside of her. Her story starts that she makes a deal with the devil, or and not the devil, an actual devil, like a demon, let's say, because she doesn't want to get married. And not just because she doesn't want to get married. She's not, it's actually a very valid point that she's going to be assigned to this man, and she doesn't want to get married to this guy. And so she makes a deal with a demon or the devil, and the deal says, okay, well, you will be safe. You won't have to marry, but the drawback of that is that no one will ever remember you. And you know what? That is a fantastic premise for a book. I immediately felt when I started reading it that was going to be one of my favorite books of all times. The way in which she survives, it really is difficult. It's very gradual. It's not it spans throughout many centuries. Addie has to learn that she will never be remembered by anyone. And it starts by going back to her family, and they don't remember her, and they chase her away, and there's so much pain in that. There's a lot to be said about the way in which V. Schwab is characterizing and describing these protagonists and the pain that they feel. And but Addie is triumphant. Addie always finds a way. She always finds a way. And again, spoiler alert, there's also ideation about ending her own life, because she just goes on and on and on, being forgotten by everyone. She literally falls in love with people. They will remember her for one day. The moment they fall asleep, when they wake up, they will chase her away because they don't know her. And that's a very sad life. It's a very lonely life. She periodically meets again with the demon/devil that granted her wish. And there's a lot of sensual scenes as well, because it's Addie is, how should I say this? She's so strong that at a certain point she understands what she has to do, and she also prostitutes herself in order to make some money, because in order to survive she has to. And so, there's also a relationship with this devil/demon. I will not tell you the end, but this is really a book that I keep on going back to, and I just absolutely love. But also the reason why the deck that I compare it to is I Am Not a Doll Tarot. And the reason is that there is this sense of being triumphant at the end, and knowing that being assertive for yourself means that you can win, even though it's not necessarily a win. So I love this deck, absolutely gorgeous. RWS based, but yes, there are these characters that look like dolls. But the title is I'm Not a Doll. And so it's the same with Addie LaRue. It's every time she will be accused of being something or other by people who were her friends, her relative, her lovers. And then they just go to sleep and they wake up and they don't recognize her. So there is this sense of assertion that comes out of Addie's character and from the I Am Not a Doll deck. There is a sense of infinite time coming out of the book and the deck. Very cosmic kind of energies. And I love to think that maybe Addie looks like one of these dolls. And she's not a doll, but you know what I mean? There is this sense of having lost your human features, because something that really resonates with human beings is our legacy, the reason why people will still remember us. And so I just really, really love this deck. And if you liked The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab, you will love I Am Not a Doll. So I'm talking now about a book that is actually rather recent. It's by Nat Cassidy, also one of my favorite authors. And it's called When the Wolf Comes Home. It's very difficult. I know that it's very recent and it's rather difficult for many of you to have read it already. So I'm going to try my best not to spoil this book. But let me just, okay, obviously there's a wolf in the title, so you can safely imagine that there's a wolf in the book, yeah? Okay. And it's obviously a werewolf, because whenever we're talking about a horror book that has a wolf in it, it's obviously a werewolf. Having said that, it is not necessarily the monster. So there is this ambivalence in the book. How should I say this without giving anything away? It's so incredibly difficult. Let me just talk about the vibes of the book, yeah? Okay, so this book is about truth. It's about relationship with loved ones, especially when it comes to close-knit family. It's about confessions. It's about being true to yourself and also true to someone you care about. And there's something that happens at a certain point in the book in which there is the figure of a parent. Let's say it's the mother of the protagonist that has to reveal something to the protagonist. Her reveal is something that really sheds a completely different light onto the life of the protagonist. Literally, she goes bonkers. She goes like, how on earth have you not told me before? Everything that she's done has been determined by a certain event, and she did not know the truth behind that event. And when the mother actually tells her, that throws her off completely, because it's something that she would have wanted to know much earlier on. And so there is this sense of speaking up and speaking the truth. And for that reason, I believe that if you liked When the Wolf Comes Home, you will love When Olga Speaks, which is an oracle deck by Sasha Lopez. Sasha was incredibly sweet because she sent me this deck and also the Long Journey Home. I highly recommend both of them. I believe they're both for sale right now and in her website, in Sasha's website. She also has an Instagram account that you can check for all her projects. It's called the Numa Collective. So When Olga Speaks is one of my favorite oracle decks because it is based obviously on Olga's saying. So Olga is Sasha's grandma. So that's one of the reasons why I also find it easy, let's say, to associate it with the When the Wolf Comes Home, because it's true that the person, let's say the female figure doing the revealing and expressing the love and the care for the protagonist is not her grandma, it's her mother, but it does have that kind of sense of wisdom that comes with the parental bond that there is between the two. And because of the sheer magnitude of the reveal, it feels like this oracle actually is perfect to be associated with that book. Because when Olga speaks, she shouts. And it is a message that is incredibly clear. Sasha has done a fantastic job in this collage because she's associated these images that you see, that you're witnessing, you're looking at, with a spirit of the message that is to be found at the bottom of the card, with maybe just a couple of words, but they're so deep and related and eloquent. that they resonate with us together with the images. And so that's the reason why I would say the communication here is done in such a very vocal way. And I love the fact that this oracle deck is called When Olga Speaks, because you can hear her speaking. And it's your responsibility to listen. And just as much as it was the responsibility of the protagonist in the book to listen, really closely listen to what is happening, to what is told to you, because there's a massive twist at the end. And of course, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is a massive twist at the end. I did not see that coming. If you liked When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy, you will love When Olga Speaks by Sasha Lopez. One of my favorite books of all times when it comes to a very specific genre of horror, so subgenre, I guess it's called. It's the haunted place, not necessarily just a haunted house. I do love a good haunted house. My favorite one of all time is The September House. I just love that book so much. I wish I could eat it. I don't know, it's a bit weird. But when it comes to a haunted place, The Haunting of Welkwood, oh my God. Oh my God, that book, read it. If you love horror books, but not on the gory side, but psychological horror, really deep and disturbing, not gross, not disturbing as in gross, disturbing as in it really makes you think, and you feel so much for the protagonist. The Haunting of Welkwood is one of my favorite books, absolutely worth reading it. It's by Gwendolyn Christie. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Kiste. So because of the atmosphere, it's a very haunted atmosphere. So I hope I'm not giving too much away, but this is the haunting of an entire street, basically, of an entire suburb, not just a house. And this suburb has been literally closed off in a supernatural way. Only someone who's survived this area, this suburb, which is called Welkwood, that got out. She's asked to go back in and collect samples and try and understand what happened and so on and so forth. There's an investigative element that I really like to these kind of books as well. When she goes there, everything is the same. The other characters are still there. And it's almost as if you were just locked stuck in time or something like that. And I really love that idea. But the atmosphere reminds me immediately, when I started reading the book, the atmosphere immediately reminded me of a deck that I've got. It's an oracle deck, and it's A Journey of a Lonely Soul. This is an oracle deck published by Lo Scarabeo by Charles Harrington and Anna Bojbroda. Again, apologies if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. This is an older deck, I believe, from maybe 4 years ago. It could be 3, I don't remember necessarily. One of my favorite horror-based oracle decks of all times. This is just so intense. So intense. I mean, this could be Welkwood 100%. This could be Welkwood 100%, and this as well, and this as well. I mean, I'm not going to repeat myself, but this could be the protagonist's house in Welkwood 100%. I love it so much. This could be Welkwood again. I love this deck so much. The sentences, the phrases at the bottom of the deck, of the card, are absolutely very evocative. Let me just read one. For example, return to abundant shores, stirrings of a welcome wind, floating in the storm, misted promenade. This could be, there's no bridge that connects the present world to the Welkwood world, but it could be, it could be a bridge leading there. So I just love the eerie atmosphere of this deck so much, and it is literally, to me, it's the visualization of the interiors and the exteriors of Welkwood. So again, if you like The Haunting of Welkwood, you will love Journey of a Lonely Soul. And that was it for today. We talked about 13 decks. So I hope you're liking this video format. It's been so much fun for me, especially doing the research, think about my favorite horror books, associating them with my favorite horror decks. If you have any other example for some of the books that I mentioned, also books that I haven't mentioned yet, but then please don't give any spoiler, because if I haven't read them, I actually get really hurt by reading spoilers because I have a freaky memory and I just cannot forget. If I read something, I will remember it. But in any case, let me know what you think about this, and let me know what you think about my choices as well. I'm always interested to hear your opinion. For now, have a great day and I will see you soon. Bye.